So let's look at getting some really good pushing lures from our dog. Now, when we want to lure our dog, we want to make sure that they're pushing into our hand so that we have a nice contact from our dog, so that when we move our hand to move them into any different position, then the dog is really pushing into that hand and there's no gaps in between and no stilted movement. We can get a nice smooth lure and really explain to our dogs what we want them to do without any breaks in that training. So here we have Ezekiel, and he hasn't really done a great deal of luring before. So all I'm doing here is having that treat in the hand position as we have shown you before. If you haven't seen that, please go and have a look at that video on our channel. And I'm just getting him to really push into my hand before he gets that treat released to him. Now he can lick the treat, he can probably nibble the treat as well while it's in my hand, but it's only going to be actually delivered to him once he's really pushing into my hand. Now he's also a bit of a biter, so he's nibbling my fingers at the same time, and I want to get away from that as well. And I want to make sure that by the end of our luring training that we've just got a calm, non-nibbly push into my hand from him. So we're working on a few things here. We're working on stopping him actually biting my hand, and we are getting him pushing his nose into my hand. Now, as you can see, my hand is slightly cupped so he can really get his nose in there. And the biting is just going to come out as he starts to understand what it is that we want him to do. So literally all I'm doing here is having that treat there and just having him put his nose into my hand and push. And the moment that he pushes into my hands, the moment I feel the pressure of his nose in my hand, then I mark it with his marker word and the treat is released to him. So there's not a great deal of training that he has to do here. This is something that we need to repeat again and again and again for him to get the idea. And I'm just testing a few times when I move my hand whether he's staying with my hand, and he is staying a little bit more. So he is starting to learn to push it into my hand. I want to make sure that wherever my hand goes, he is going to follow with his nose and it stays in my hand the whole time. Now, what I'm also doing here is just putting pressure back to him. So I'm moving my hand in towards him to show him that pressure, to show him how much he needs to push into my hand. So all I'm doing is offering the treat down, pushing back towards him. Not a great deal. I don't want him moving. I just want him to feel the pressure of my hand on his nose, and then he gets marked and rewarded when he is matching that pressure. I don't want him to take his nose out of my hand when I push my hand towards him. I want to make sure that he's matching that pressure. Over time, as we do this more and more, he's going to understand that pressure going into my hand, so that when I move my hand the other way, away from him, he remains with that pressure in my hand, which will move his body, which means I can then drive his whole body from his head. We want to make sure, if we're trying to get positions from our dogs, that we're driving them from their head. And the only way we can do this is by having them putting that pressure into our hands, because it's all from their own free will here. They are the ones that's putting the pressure into our hands. We have to let them know that it's okay to do this, and this is what we want them to do. There's no manipulation of the body. Anytime that I'm luring them into a different position or into a different behavior, it's all from the pressure they are putting into my hands. So if they're feeling uncomfortable at any time, or they're not entirely sure what I want them to do, they can just take the pressure out of my hand and move away. So this is all very much driven by the dog as well when we're teaching those positions, just by teaching them to have that pressure in my hand, which will help me to be able to maneuver them into a position or a movement that I want them to go into. So they have that opportunity to be able to move away from what I am doing, so that they are more comfortable with that training as well. So here you can see that he's staying with my hand on turning it around, so he's really starting to get that lure.